On today's show, I'm joined by Grant Schiller of Baseball Perspectives. We're breaking down everything Frisco Roughriders hitting. We're talking about Justin Foscue's season. We're talking a little bit about Thomas Saggese and Aaron Zavala and all these different, surprising, fantastic hitters in Double-A this season. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, joined here today by Grant Schiller, the OG, to break down the Rangers minor league system, Double-A and Triple-A edition, plus some thoughts on Kumar Rocker, and just some general overview thoughts on the minor league system. Grant, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You may hear a little bit of cough, a little sniffling. It's just asthma and allergies. It's that season, but aside from that, doing well. Ready to watch some playoff baseball. Yu Darvish about to go to the World Series. That should be future Hall of Famer Yu Darvish. I'm just ready to watch that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun and a lot of Rangers legends on there. I appreciate you having a second co-host jump in and out of frame with the good dog in the background. Y'all keep your eyes out on YouTube. If you're not already, subscribe on YouTube to Locked On Rangers. You can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. You can follow Grant at OG Schill, SCHIL. L? 2 L's?
2 L's.
Yeah, I think so. I have it written there and I can't read. Because literacy is hard. But Grant Schiller is a prospect expert, been covering the Rangers farm system for a long time, and also writes for Baseball Perspectives. So those are his credentials, also being a generally smart baseball man. Let's start at Double-A. A season filled with, I feel like every bit of this Ranger season, there was like a lot of like really good moments that were just completely overshadowed by a lot of poo-poo. But the Frisco Roughriders won the Texas League for the first time since 2004. And, it's not the be-all, end-all, but, I feel like that was a pretty significant thing for the guys involved in this.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not the be-all, end-all, right? Winning is a very secondary pursuit in the minor leagues. But once you get to the playoffs, it's the players are pretty into it. And they're I think Thomas Saggese said on Jeff Wilson's podcast, it was he was enjoying having it be a more team aspect again, like it was in high school and Little League and all that. Regular season, they can say they're trying to win, but the team's out there to develop the players, and the players are out there to develop themselves. Playoffs come around, they're trying to win a championship, so that was pretty cool. I enjoyed having additional games to go see. But then also, it was pretty nice to see him go out and win it. They had such a good team, so especially the lineup at the end of the year. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was so deep too. I mean, we went into the season thinking, okay, the starting pitching is going to be amazing, and maybe there's a couple bats there that'll be pretty fun. We thought, okay, Ezequiel Duran should be pretty fun. We thought guys I was about to say Brad Miller because his name just popped up, but no, he was there for 3 whole games, made a real impact. But eventually Zavala made his way there, and Dustin Harris as well. But it was mainly Duran and Harris offensively at the start of the season, with maybe some thought that Justin Foscue and Blaine Krim would add in some big offensive moments there. And you know what? They kind of did. But I want to talk about those guys specifically in Foscue and Harris. I want to start with Foscue because he's a guy who I think we're both a little lower on than consensus. Mm-hmm. But overall, the season numbers are fine. Obviously, there's the defensive woes, and there's not quite as much power as you'd want from a guy who's pretty much offense only. But he seemed to have a half-decent season. I think I ended up this year liking him a little bit more at the end than I did at the beginning.
Yeah, I guess I'm with you. I don't think my opinion changed a whole lot on him, really. Mm-hmm. He hit the ball well. I don't think anybody's going to look at an 850 OPS and say that he didn't have a good offensive season. All right, 45 walks to 66 strikeouts. That's very strong. 15 home runs, you'd like to see a little bit higher, but he did pair it with 31 doubles and somehow a triple. I don't know what kind of outfielder allowed that to happen, but you look at that, like it was a good season for him offensively. The question is it good enough for what he is outside of the bat, right? Because he's pretty poor at second base. The hands don't make him a great fit at first. The speed doesn't make him a great fit in left. So he's tough defensively wherever he is. So you have to.
What
really
about third base though?
Yes, he did play third base. I can confirm that to be a fact.
He was there,
and I'll leave the comment at that. You know, he played it. He did. So we'll just see if he grows and hits enough to overcome that. I'm not necessarily sold, but I wouldn't write it off because he's a good hitter. He is. It's a good bat. I think he needs to access a little bit more power. I'd like to see. I think he probably needs to hit 25 homers a year at the big league level, along with some other positive contributions in order to be able to be a positive player at that level. But I wouldn't put it past him. We'll see if he can get to more of the power next year.
If he did that, I mean, we've seen the power. Like it's really
spurt.
streaky. It is such spurts. I mean, and insane spurts. Because like last year, he had that run of like what
8 and 7,
homers.
I think.
Yeah, it's just something insane. That really skewed his numbers and wasn't quite sustainable and really fell off after he got the AA. But like, do you think if he is contributing like that, like if he has, you know, an 800 plus OPS at the big leagues with like 25 homers and like a decent walk rate and not striking out, do you think that could make up for him to be an everyday second baseman? Probably not with the Rangers because of Marcus Semien, but like somewhere that he would have some trade value.
Yeah, well, probably not with the Rangers. The sense I got was that opposing scouts weren't in love with him this year. So I'm sure he has trade value, but I'm not sure it is the kind of trade value where the national publications kind of indicate, with him coming into the season and some places at midseason still being a top 100 guy. I don't think that's how he's viewed around the league. So I could totally see him be traded. I'm sure he'd have value, but I don't think it would be extremely high. And to answer the question, I think he's going to have – I think it's got to be a really high bar for him offensively to be a everyday second baseman on any team with hopes of contending, just because the glove is pretty poor.
In just a moment, we'll get back to my talk with Grant Schiller all about these Frisco Roughriders hitters. But first, this episode is brought to you by Roan. Finding a great dress shirt is extremely difficult. They're uncomfortable, they're tight, and they're never your size. But, you know, Roan is here, and a dress shirt is due for a radical new reinvention. Roan stepped up to the challenge. It's the most comfortable, breathable, flexible shirt known to man, and here is why. Roan's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws at you, from your commute to work to 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident with wrinkle-free shirt without the hassle. Roan's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the shirt. It's easy. It's that easy. Really, it really is. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Roan is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. The commuter shirt can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to roan.com/lockedon and use promo code lockedon to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/lockedon and use code lockedon. It's time to find your corner office comfort. And now, back to my talk with Grant Schiller. Well, I mean, I know a team that could use a lot of offense and has a lot of pitching. It rhymes with Miami Schmarlins, and they could use offense wherever the heck they could get it. But let's go to the next guy on the list that started the year with some high hopes, coming off a really good season. Didn't play quite as much as he wanted to, had a couple injuries late on in the year, and I don't know if we're going to see him in the Arizona Fall League. I really thought we would, but I think have we officially decided that we're not going to see him, Dustin Harris?
Excuse me. I thought we would too. I guess the wrist is bothering him more than anticipated. So I'd be surprised if we saw him at this point. I don't know if there's a whole lot of good in bringing him back for 2-3 games.
Yeah.
He's interesting. He's kind of a hard to evaluate for me. At the top end, he's such a good athlete. Like he's got double plus raw power. Once he gets going in a straight line, he's very fast. I mean, there's a reason he was a 2020 guy last year, and if he'd stayed healthy, he probably would have gotten there this year. But he's not super twitchy. And he didn't get good reads in left field. So he's another guy who's going to have to hit enough to overcome a bad glove, or probably be fine at first base, but you have to hit to overcome first base position.
Plus, Nathaniel Lowe's pretty entrenched there. I mean, it seems like at the big league level next year, like.
Well, Lowe can DH. Lowe can't field either.
That's true. And he's definitely a better fielder than Lowe already. But you also have Mitch Garver. People forget that he's a thing. And he is probably going to be doing a lot of DHing. I don't know that Jonah Heim is when he's not catching, but I think the Rangers are going to want to get that Garver bat in there as much as they can. And hoping that he's healthy enough to actually catch a decent chunk next year.
It would be very nice. Be very nice to get the real Mitch Garver that we expected to get in the trade. But with Harris, he's another guy who's probably going to have to hit enough to overcome the glove. I think he'll be a major league caliber hitter. He's got a hole middle in on off speed that he's going to have to fix. But I think he'll get there. I think he'll keep his hands in enough to be a major league caliber hitter. He's another guy where I'm not sure if he's going to be strong enough at the plate to overcome the glove. So to me, he's a much better athlete than Foscue, but there's some similarities there in the projection where they are.
Mm-hmm. I know when I saw him early on, and they kind of decided, all right, this guy's just going to be a left fielder. And I thought, okay, well, that's a choice. I didn't see him at third base at all, but I assume I actually have no idea what it was like at third. Maybe it was like fine because he played there a decent bit. I'm sure he's fine at first. But early on, he took some, let's say, circuitous routes to balls. As you saw him progress throughout the year and get more reps in left field, because he didn't really have that many reps in the outfield beforehand. Did you see a lot of progress or any progress really at all?
There was progress, but it went from hideous to ugly, right? Like, there was progress. He got better.
Still a glow up.
And I'm sure he'll continue to get better. But it was still pretty bad by the time he got hurt and did the season. It just didn't seem like instinctually it was a natural fit for him.
Yeah, definitely took some getting used to, but it seems like at the moment, like left field is the spot where if you're going to be an everydayer, at least in the next like year or maybe
you gotta
2
win that
years,
left field spot.
That's where it is, and there are a lot of guys that are going to be competing for that spot. I think the guy who will eventually win out, maybe even take over in center, is Evan Carter. We're going to get to him in a minute, but two guys that are I think a little more polished, at least a little bit older than him. Maybe they still won't get to the big leagues faster than him. Are two guys that I always think of as like twins because they have such similar profiles, and that's Trevor Hauver and Aaron Zavala, both of whom are doing very much Trevor Hauver and Aaron Zavala things in Surprise, Arizona. And that if you don't know these guys, they are guys who walk a crap ton. They didn't show a whole lot of power early on, which is why it took them so long to get promoted to AA. But then they eventually started showing it. And it was like for most of the year, it was like both these guys had like an average. Well, right now, this was the line, I think, for both of them. They both have the exact same batting average, 167. Both have on bases over 400, 412 for Zavala and 423 for Hauver. And the slugging is not really great for either. Hauver is at 333 and Zavala is at 417. Now, both those are in, 6 games for Hauver and 4 for Zavala. But I really liked what I saw from them, especially from Zavala this year. And I know you weren't very high on him after seeing him in the Instructs games last year, but I feel like both of us were really impressed from what we saw from him in Frisco this year.
Yeah, 100%. I, like you said, last fall and in Surprise, I wasn't super in on Zavala. Athletically, when he got to Frisco, it looked very different. And he's got such a good feel for the zone. He picks up spin so well. Such an advanced approach. He really stings the ball. He's so balanced. I mean, to me, it was very quick. I was like, that's an everyday guy, which I was not expecting. I found him to be very impressive. I think he can be an everyday left fielder. Like you said, there's a lot of competition here for that role, so it may not be here. But I really liked him quite a bit. Hauver,
I'm curious. Before we move on from Zavala, I was listening to the Range on Deck pod, and Tep had said something that I felt the same way. Is that he could not get any kind of a grade on Zavala's arm. It's like sometimes he'd have just noodled in throws, and some were just like lasers. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, which to me, if you can't get consistency, you're probably a left fielder. But yeah, it was so inconsistent. But he might be the prospect in the organization that jumped the most in my eyes this year.
Really, more than Carter or Acuna?
Yeah, because I already really liked them.
Okay.
Those two I was already pretty in on. Zavala I was not. And, I will say he is enough of a bat, and with his approach, I could see him outstripping that Rule 5 projection and being a more significant every guy. I could see him outperforming the expectations, just given how advanced and strong his feel for the zone and for picking up off speed is.
We'll get back to my talk with Grant in just a minute, but first, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you haven't tried the new Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Are you ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right, Built has done it again. This flavor is one of my new favorites. I start my day off so often with the Built Bar as I did today. They are delicious. They are good for you. They have so many different flavors that you can choose from. And, the cookie dough chunk puffs, they are only 160 calories and have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to Built.com, snag yourself a box for you or the family. Like all these bars, these new cookie dough chunk puffs covered in 100% chocolate means they're healthy and they're tasty. Chocolate-covered cookie dough with light, fluffy texture. It is so good. What's great about Built is that all their bars are made from collagen protein, which your body absorbs more naturally, efficiently as well. It provides a ton of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON15. And now back to my talk with Grant Schiller. Well, that's definitely encouraging because it was just a really scary situation with him right after the draft, and that medical anomaly. It's like, okay, what's going to happen? Is he going to not be able to walk? That was just really scary for him in general, and for him to get back to baseball shape, and thankfully the second opinion doctor had the better opinion, it seems like, and he's playing baseball and he's not going to aggravate it, and that is just a huge developmental win for the Rangers with how well he did this year. But Hauver, it seems like, is the I don't know if I would say the least impactful of the four different pieces that the Rangers got back for Joey Gallo, but I don't mean that to be a huge detriment to him because the other guys have already made a decent impact at the big league level.
Yeah, and Hauver, it felt like throughout the season, didn't it, that he was having a disappointing year and that it was kind of a letdown. That's how it felt throughout the year. But then you look back on it, and, he walked almost as much as he struck out. He walked over 20% of his plate appearances, which is crazy. His ISO was over 200. And he was well above the average OPS, both leagues, and really, it's understated due to a pretty low BABIP this year. He's a guy who hits the ball hard. You'd expect it to be higher than 260, and last year it was about 360. So you expect it probably to fall between those two numbers on a larger sample. So I look at that, and I see an advanced approach. I see him accessing power, and numbers held down by some bad luck on batted balls. Now, the difference between him and Zavala is that Zavala can be a capable left fielder. Hauver's not good defensively. He's another one kind of like Foscue and Harris, where there may not be a perfect home for him.
Mm-hmm. I remember when he was listed on Pipeline. I think they changed that this year, but they had Hauver listed as a second baseman / outfielder, and I was like, Now seeing him in person, I'm like, no, he's not. He's not playing second.
And I don't think he played second this year. He played a bunch of left field and a little bit of first.
Yeah, I think that was the case. Yeah, I'm not seeing any second base here. He played. Let's see, in Tampa last year, he played 56 games at second for them. He did play 12 games in second for Hickory last year, right after the trade. Played quite a few, and even played one game at third for Single A Tampa for the Yankees. But yeah, that is not an infielder out there. That is probably not even a left fielder.
Yeah,
but he can hit. So that's
yes,
nice.
He can hit.
And speaking of guys who could hit, a guy who I slept on way too much this year, I want to get into the guys who I think are outside of Zavala, I guess I was going to say all the infielders, but Evan Carter's not an infielder. But I don't think we talked much about him on the High A episode, however many weeks ago that was. But if we did, who cares? Evan Carter is probably the best Rangers prospect by far, even if you still include Josh Young, I think, which is... I don't know if it's by far over Josh Young, but for me, I think even my biased Texas Tech butt will put Evan Carter over him in the top 100. But I want to get into Thomas Saggese. I don't know how I got all the way around there, but I think I just didn't notice him for what he has done, and basically not quite the same level of success that Evan Carter is doing, but the same kind of principle of like a guy who is really young and having a lot of success at the upper levels. And I'm curious, I know he's only up in the regular season for 5 games at Frisco, but what all did you see out of Saggese? What kind of role do you envision for him? Which of these 17 different infield positions that he plays do you think is his long-term home?
Yeah, good hitter. Hits the ball hard. Another guy with an advanced approach at a young age. For his size, he has a surprising amount of pop. It's not plus or anything, but he can get to a ball and he can launch it a little bit. As he adds more weight, maybe that more of that comes. But just a good hitter. It's really pretty simple. He's another one of these guys and pick up spin well. He reads the zone well. He controls it well. Not going to walk like Carter and Zavala do. He's a little bit more aggressive. But he doesn't expand it all that much. And he's got really good bat-to-ball skills. He hits the ball hard. So I liked him. I think third base is probably the position he's best at. But if you ask me where his home is, it's probably at all those positions. Because I think he's a utility guy, all said and done. Probably not going to be playing much big league shortstop, but you can play him at second, third, first, left. Might be able to stick him in one of the other outfield spots too. And he's a good bat. So I could see him being the utility guy who plays 3-4 times a week on a good team. I like him.
Yeah, I think what I looked over was like, all right, he's not that big. He doesn't have a whole lot of power. But this year, he really had a lot more power than I would have thought. He had 15 homers in 103 regular season games. He also had 25 doubles and 4 triples. Last year, he had 10 homers as a 19-year-old in Down East. So, I ended up being pretty impressed in both places. I guess last year he had 370 on base. This year, it was at 360 over the course of the full season. But really nice season.
The other thing with him is he's an all-makeup guy. I mean, he is a lot of leadership attributes from what you hear. Coaches love him. Players love him. He's half the organization's best friend. All-time first-team makeup guy.
That's always a good thing. But yeah, speaking of these infielders, Luisangel Acuna, who is absolutely tearing up the Surprise League right now. He's got a 914 OPS in 9 games, a pair of homers, a triple, a pair of doubles, and an on base of 342 while playing a whole lot of shortstop. What else did you see from him this year? I wasn't quite as high on him, I think, as you were last year, But after this year and what he did during the regular season and now also tearing it up in surprise, I am way higher on him this year than I was at the beginning.
Another everyday guy for me. He plays good defense. I think he can be an above average shortstop and a plus 6man, provides a lot of value. He's a good base runner. That provides more value than at the plate. He's going to take some walks. He hits the ball hard, especially given his size. Now, he will stay in the zone a little bit and strike out some, unlike some of these other guys. Excuse me. Unlike some of these other guys. But he gets value from so many different places. And it's a good swing. And he hits the ball hard. He hits it enough. And given the different base running value, I think there is plenty there to be an everyday guy. And then if he can reel in a little bit more on the offensive side, there could be more in there too. He's a guy who I think with BP this offseason is not going to be fighting for a top 100 spot.
Heck yes. Put him up there because that is one of the things that I didn't realize until this year. And one of the things that really surprised me, I mean, you talked about how he does everything. I kind of knew that, and I thought, I was like, all right, he can do everything like okay. It was kind of like the who's the Maximo Acosta, but it seems like his tools are a little bit louder. And the thing that surprised me the most when he went to Frisco and being up there and seeing some of the like StatCast readings for him is how hard he stings the ball. I didn't expect somebody who was 5'10", 180 pounds to sting it like he did, which maybe I should have assumed because, you know, his brother, who is a little bit bigger than him, also can sting the crap out of the baseball. But, like, this guy he makes really hard contact.
Yeah, it's loud. And he goes up there fully intending to make loud contact.
And he does it
often,
which is awesome.
Yes, he does.
Like, this entire lineup was just, like, filled with guys who, like, especially at the end of the year, even with the pitching, we'll get into the pitching later because it's more depressing. We're saving it till the end. Even with that, like, it was like, okay, I mean, the first playoff game or whatever, when Jack Leiter left in, like, the second inning and the Roughriders were down 3-0, it was like,
That's nothing.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't matter. These guys are just going to come back and absolutely mash. And one of the guys who I think was the best hitter towards the end of the season was Evan Carter. We were both really high on him after last year, and we were both like salivating over just what we saw in 30 games. We're like, oh my God, imagine if he does that again next year. Are they even going to like promote him a level? Like he's still going to be a teenager next year, and that he ends the year in AA and like completely holds his own and smashes. Like, were you expecting anything like this, especially with like the worries we had about like the back injury last year? I mean, he was pretty darn healthy all year and looked amazing at every level.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked him, but for a guy who just turned 20, to be doing what he's doing, no, no, I didn't expect it. I mean, he's a true center fielder. He's another guy who has a great feel for the zone, great speed for picking up, a great feel for picking up off speed and reading spin, and that's a skill that a lot of these guys have, but that's not the one to take for granted. That's something that the Rangers have really put a lot of focus on with their bats in the draft lately. And it's a big deal. It's not a skill that many guys at this level have. So for these guys to be shown it the way they do is pretty impressive. But he has that. He has power. He has speed. He's legitimate. I wouldn't say he's far away the top prospect.
He has 10 triples this year. 10 triples. Like in 100 games they were all at Hickory. But like 10. And 11 home runs and 18 doubles, like,
yeah,
gosh, while playing legit center field. I mean,
yep.
As much as we both thought Leote was going to be the everyday guy, and he still might be, but like,
it might be for a year.
Yeah, it might be just for like next year or half of next year. Like, I mean, who freaking knows with this kid? He's been so dang good at every level. Like, I think they're probably going to start him in Frisco next year, but like, would you be surprised if they started him in AAA next year? Like,
not completely. I mean, it'd be aggressive, but the guy's advanced and he's talented, and He's really dang good.
I think he makes his big league debut at some point next year. Like, I really do. I think it's going to be a lot more likely, especially if they start him in AAA. I don't think he's going to, like, blow the doors off everybody and, like, win the job out at camp. But, like, I think by, like, August, he might be pushing for that big league debut, which is awesome. Absolutely what you'd love to see out of your guy who was 19 all season, finishing the year in AA and mashing to a a Texas League championship. That's going to do it for today's episode with Grant. I'll be back tomorrow with more talk with Grant, talking about these Frisco pitchers, a little bit more on the hitters, and what went wrong for Frisco pitching this season, despite a overall really great championship season. That'll do it for today's show, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.